What's up, boys and girls? Welcome to another edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia. It's time for the Monday Mirror on November 25th edition of the program. Wade Neely sitting in the saddle alongside the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Blaine Keller. Blaine, good afternoon.
Wade, thanks for having me and for doing a little bit of show swapping with me today. You helped out with the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast this morning, and now I'm sitting in for the great Mo Patton this afternoon, trying to do my best.
Yeah, we swapped it out, so it was good. But I was glad to be with you this morning. I'm glad that you're with us this afternoon, and we hope Mo is enjoying a much deserved Monday away from the show. He'll be back with us tomorrow, but going to be a big show, Blaine, as we kind of run through things here. Again, presented as always by TOA of Columbia inside the Lee Company mobile studios. You and I are both in the greater Nashville area, which is fitting because we're going to talk a lot about Nashville, including the Tennessee Titans. We're going to talk a little bit about college football and a certain team in orange that will be coming to Nashville this weekend. And I mean, first of all, let's just tap into the Titans just very quickly, Blaine. I mean, going on the road and beating the Texans, I don't know that many folks had that on their bingo card this weekend.
As somebody who kind of helps out, we both chip in the Titans org a little bit. I was fully expecting a 2-10 Titans team to go up against a 2-11 Jacksonville Jaguars team in a couple weeks for first place in the draft standings. That was already etched into my mind. But the Titans found a way to pick up that 32-27, really a shocking win in Houston. As I mentioned this morning, feels like the best win of Brian Callahan's short coaching tenure so far, and probably the best Titans win in at least the past 2 years, I'd debate.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into that a little bit more. We'll get into it in depth coming up in our next segment. Sam PHALEN from A to Z Sports is going to join us. We will talk again 32-27. The Titans knocking off the Texans yesterday. Sam has wrote some great stuff about the win and kind of maybe where the Titans go from here. So looking forward to catching up with him. We'll tap into more NFL. What a wild weekend it was in the National Football League. Blaine and I will break that all down still here inside this first hour. And then hour number two, we like to cover more than football, but when you have a weekend like we had, Blaine, with the NFL, but the second hour, we could do a whole show on what happened in college football on Saturday, I think.
Just on Saturday, and not to mention Kyle Schwartz of the Ohio Valley Conference going to join us for Selection Sunday of the FCS playoff selection committee, where three kind of regional teams have made it into the dance there. So really, like you said, just on Saturday alone, there could be a whole show. But we're going to tap into Saturday and Sunday of college football and in all of Division I.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to that. As Blaine mentioned, Kyle Schwartz, Associate Commissioner of the Ohio Valley Conference, will join us. The Big South / OVC, I hope I got that right. They sent not one, not two, but three teams to the FCS playoffs, including a couple of teams here from the Volunteer State. So Kyle will join us at 3:20. We'll break that down. We'll talk about what that means and maybe talk about what that could mean for the future of small college football here in the mid-state for some of those OVC schools. So that's going to be fun. Final segment, we'll tap into the grab bag. There is at least one public high school, Division I TSSAA school that is near and dear to Blaine's heart that is worthy of shouting out. So you're not going to want to miss that. That kind of sets the stage because Blaine, man, we got Thanksgiving this week.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got the biggest games of the high school football season for our public schools coming up Friday night as well.
I don't want to spoil too much, but this school that's near and dear to my heart loves playing and practicing on Thanksgiving. They've become pretty accustomed to it. So going to be fun to break that down and fun for that particular school to get another opportunity on Thursday.
Let the record show we were going to mention that school no matter what. But when Blaine was fortunate enough to or gracious enough to join us today, we decided, you know what, we got to show those guys some love. So you're not going to want to miss that jam-packed show. We got a lot to get into. We're glad that you guys are spending your Monday of Thanksgiving week with us. And with that being said, it's time we bring you guys up to speed. Let's go to the weekend's results, and let's go to today's schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Before we get started, I want to remind you that the Monday Rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education in Murray County, so give them a call today at 931-388-5831 or visit them online at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. That's Zion Christian Academy, prepared for college and equipped for purpose.
Got some high school football results from Friday Division I quarterfinals, Division II semifinals across the state. Baylor ending George McIntyre, the Tennessee commitment, his senior season, a 35-21 final. The Big Red move on to the Division II AAA championship game. Class 5A Springfield, that team that we teased just a moment ago, huge 47-14 win at Beach. CPA defeating Boyd Buchanan 34-7. Maurice's Columbia Academy Bulldogs advancing past Donaldson Christian 47-13. McCauley set to face Baylor in that D2 AAA championship after a 31-7 win over Ensworth. BGA wins 28-21 against Franklin Road Academy. Nashville Christian is 62-34 winner at Jackson Christian. Game I was at, a 2.5-hour drive, Marion County, ending Westmoreland season 14-7. Pearl Cone was down 21-0 to Marshall County on the road, won 27-21 in overtime. Wade, you were at this game, 55-7, Mackenzie over Richland. Another long drive. We were both on the road on Friday.
Long drive for your game was a lot closer than mine. It was Richland played well, but Mackenzie is a wagon.
Yeah, no kidding. Oakland winning 49-46 in the Class 6A quarterfinals over Riverdale. Page, that defense continues to shine, 28-6 against Shelbyville. They'll go up against Springfield in the 5A semifinals. Ravenwood, a 38-14 winner over Stewart's Creek. And East Nashville ends White House Heritage's season 42-7, the Class 3A quarterfinals.
That was a look at your Friday night high school football scoreboard. Let's go to girls basketball scores from the weekend. We do wind it back all the way to Friday, where University School of Nashville defeated Antioch 40-30. Bartlett was a 58-25 winner versus Stewart's Creek. Creekwood on top of Cheatham County, 48-34. Sycamore squeaks by Harpeth, 32-31. John Overton, 77. Kip Nashville, 3.
Not as close as 32-31, Wade.
Does not appear to be. I'm almost hoping that's a typo on the score.
Wow.
But, yeah, we'll go back and double check. But, yeah, 77-3 is our listed final there. Yikes. Speaking of 77, though, Liberty Creek defeats Merrill Hyde 77-47. A little more respectable there. Lipscomb Academy 66, Hendersonville 23. Rossview was a 56-52 winner versus Good Pasture. Community on top of Santa Fe 51-21. Columbia takes care of Whites Creek 45-24. And capping Friday's scores, it was Culleoka 43 over Zion Christian, just 35. Into Saturday, still girls basketball. It was Tullahoma 69-15 over Battle Creek. Coffee County picks up a 40-31 win versus Nolensville. Ezel Harding 60, Columbia Academy 52. It was Wilson Central on top of Franklin County 76-72. Westmoreland defeating Gallatin 46-23. Gallatin played another game that day, not out of the realm of possibility early in the season, maybe a little Saturday play day, 38-20 over Clarksville Northwest, maybe a little pre-holiday tournament there. Henry County defeating Clarksville Northeast 60-18. It was Summertown 54, Jackson Christian 46. Clarksville Academy was a 47-32 winner versus Kirkwood. Bradley Central 59, Lebanon 28. Stewart's Creek 57, Middle College 20. It was Moore County 51-32 over Page. Murfreesboro Central Magnet on top of Battle Creek 69-21. Page 67, Eagleville 34, Moore County 68, Portland 24. Coming down the home stretch here, folks. Eagleville 49, Portland 30. Shelbyville with a 78-10 win versus Glencliff. Summertown 53, Huntland 40. Trousdale County 47-39 over Friendship Christian. Westmoreland 60-40 over Clarksville Northwest. And Scottsboro, Alabama 79-46 over Wilson Central.
Deep breath, Wade, after that long list there. We're still on the hardwood here. Boys basketball.
Did we lose Blaine?
I'm back.
He's back. Welcome back.
Like I never left.
Yes,
Boys
sir.
basketball scores from Friday. Creekwood winning 51-33 against Cheatham County. Sycamore 58, Harpeth 52. Joe Burns 64-47 against McEwen. John Overton winning 37-33 against Kip Nashville. Liberty Creek puts up another 70 burger, 73-36 against Merrill Hyde in that nightcap. Lipscomb Academy ekes past Hendersonville 52-48. It's Hillsborough 65, MLK Magnet 46. Montgomery Central winning 53-42 against Waverly. Good Pasture 78-44 against Rossview. That's a good team. Santa Fe 67-53 against Community. Whites Creek 57-52 against Columbia. And Zion Christian 101. Wow. Colioca 76. I believe it's Gabe Davenport. That's a really high volume score for ZCA this year. I've been watching his stat line. Seems like he's putting up some really good performances. As for Saturday, Tullahoma wins 78-18 against Battle Creek. Page 85, Coffee County 53. Ezel Hardy wins by 6 against Columbia Academy, 67-61. Nashville Christian 74-60 against Franklin Christian. Wilson Central pulls out an 8-point win against Franklin County, 55-47. Gallatin a 71-64 winner over Clarksville Northwest, then a 63-39 winner against Lebanon. Henry County wins 65-56 against Clarksville Northeast. Hillsborough 68, Chattanooga Prep 35. Jackson Christian 55, Summertown 49. Kirkwood 59, Clarksville Academy 29. Wow. John Stegall out to a strong coaching start with the Cobras in his second year. Lebanon up 86-79 against Clarksville Northwest. Liberty Creek moves to 3-0, the 48-41 win against DeKalb County. Maryville pulls out an 1-point win, I should say, against Independence, I believe the reigning Class 4A state champions. Murfreesboro Central Magnet, a 54-29 winner against Macon County, then a 43-36 winner against Battle Creek. Webb School 41, Nolensville 40, Nolensville 72, Portland 51. Page 73, Portland 37. Rough look for the Panthers there. Shelbyville 82, Glencliff 39, Station Camp 65, Fayetteville 38, Summertown 88 points against Hutland in a 50-point win there. Webb School wins 59-51 against Eagleville, and Scottsboro of Alabama 45, Wilson Central 43.
Let's roll now into college basketball scores back from Friday night. On the women's side, it was Vanderbilt defeating Samford 104-59. TSU on top of Akron 72-68 was your final there. Women's action from Saturday, Trevecca 53, Thomas More 48. It was Lipscomb on top of Evansville 86-79. Sunday women's college basketball, Austin P was a 66-53 winner versus Mercer. Men's college basketball, some of these at neutral sites, including Vanderbilt 76-60 over Seton Hall at the Charleston Classic. It was MTSU with a nice win versus South Florida 95-88. That game was in Myrtle Beach. Tennessee defeated Baylor in the Bahamas Championship. More on that game later, 77-62 your final. Bethel takes care of Fisk in men's action Friday, 84-71. Saturday college basketball, Georgetown taking care of Fisk, 98-82. That game was played at Crisp Arena over there in McKenzie. So Bethel welcoming some folks, it sounds like, over the weekend. Trevecca on top of Cumberland, 95-56. That brings us to Sunday. It was Cumberland 81, Montevallo 63. Lipscomb taking care of Jackson State, 77-53. Bradley does defeat MTSU in the Myrtle Beach Championship, 80-69. Drake defeats Vanderbilt, 81-70. And again, that game was in the Charleston Classic. The UT Southern women's soccer team defeated the Masters, a school out of California, in the opening round of the NAIA National Tournament. 1-0. They scored the only goal of the match with about 29 seconds left in regulation, but UT Southern advances to the NAI round of 16 with that nice win down in Pulaski this weekend.
Some local college football scores. The Vols picked up a 56-0 win over UTEP. Former Austin P coach Scotty Walden, who gave the Volunteers some fits last year at Neyland Stadium. This year, not so much. Speaking of Austin P, first-year coach Jeff Ferris ended his year with a 24-17 loss to Chattanooga. Austin P, 4 wins on the season. Tough first year for Jeff Ferris there. New Mexico State defeats MTSU and their first-year coach 36-21. Tennessee State with an upset over Southeast Missouri State 28-21. Vandy can't continue its magic in SEC play, falling 24-17, though they gave the Tigers all they could in that loss. NBA scores: Memphis Grizzlies 142, Chicago Bulls 131. Scottie Pippen Jr. had a really solid performance in his dad's old stomping grounds. That was pretty neat to see. In the National Hockey League, the Preds took down the league-leading Winnipeg Jets 4-1. Some news on the Preds coming later in today's show. As we mentioned at the jump, in NFL action, the Titans 32, the Texans 27.
Those are results from this weekend. Let's get you caught up for tonight's schedule. Doubleheader basketball action. These games are at 6 p.m. unless stated otherwise. Station Camp is on the road at Clarksville Northeast. Athens, Alabama is these are flip-flopped. Giles County is going to Athens tonight. Only reason I know that's because Giles County is at home versus Brooks tomorrow. But Athens is hosting Giles County tonight at 6 p.m. Houston County is at Gleason at 6 p.m. tonight. Cheatham County at Greenbrier. Zion Christian is on the road at Hampshire. Republic is at John Overton. Laverne at Pope John Paul II. Gallatin is at Portland. Eagleville traveling to Santa Fe. BGA at Tullahoma. FC Boyd Christians is at Watertown. 6:30 start time tonight for Dixon County, who is at Innsworth. Standalone girls basketball. We'll get a final if we have a chance for some of these by the end of the show. Green Hill is at Nolensville. That game began at 1. At 2:30, Creekwood taking on Pearl Cone. 3 o'clock, we'll see Grace Christian Franklin versus Good Pasture. 4 p.m., Columbia Academy at Ravenwood. Arlington versus Wilson Central. At 4:30, East Robertson at Friendship Christian. Page is going to take on Reball, Florida. Hope no listeners are going to correct me there. But it's at 5:15. Page is in action and girls action at 5:15. That's all you need to know. 5:30 tonight, Hendersonville is at Harpeth Hall. Richland will take on Independence at 5:30. Loretto is at Priceville at 6. Rossview at Sycamore also at 6. 7 p.m. Shelbyville at Beach. Start times unknown, but we have CPA traveling to Nashville Christian, and East Hickman is at St. Cecilia Academy.
Those Florida listeners are going to give you a rough talking to at the end of the show today. You'll learn how to say Revolt, or however you say it.
We're going to have to come. Yeah, I'm going to have to brush up on that.
Get a pronunciation guide. In boys basketball, standalone action is part of the Boots Scott Thanksgiving Classic at Beach. Stratford against Wilson Central at 10 a.m. Hume Fogg faced Stewart's Creek at 11:30. MLK and Columbia faced off at 1. Siegel versus Hickman County coming at 2 p.m. Good Pasture versus CPA at 3 p.m. At 4, Tennessee Heat versus Rockvale. 5:30, it's Arlington at Beach. Columbia Academy at Friendship Christian at 6. Kip Nashville and Webb School at Kip, I believe, at 7 p.m. Richland at Ravenwood at 7. Ezel Harding at Antioch at 7:30. Merrill Hyde takes on Clarksville Christian on the road at 7:30. Fairview facing the ever-formidable TBD at 7:30. Hillsboro at Franklin, also a 7:30 tip. Camden Central's at Harpeth, as well as Valor Collegiate at Mount Juliet Christian. River Christian Academy at Nashville Christian. Father Ryan versus Smyrna. And Lawson at Upperman. Those are all 7:30 tips.
Let's get your rundown closed out here as quick as we can. Chattanooga in women's basketball. This game went final just before we went on air. 66-60, a winner versus Lipscomb. Cumberland is at North Alabama at 6 o'clock. men's college basketball tonight. It'll be TSU at Chattanooga. Game begins at 6. Can be seen on ESPN Plus. At 7 p.m. this evening, the Grizzlies will host the Portland Trailblazers. Game will be seen on FanDuel Sports South. The Preds are on the ice tonight in New Jersey, taking on the Devils at 6. Can be seen on FanDuel Sports South or MSG TV. And finally, we mentioned Harbaugh versus Harbaugh tonight on ABC. It'll be the Baltimore Ravens at the LA Chargers. Again, the 7:15 kickoff. The game will be shown on ABC. And woof, we made it through the Monday rundown. Let's roll into our top story, producer Mark. And real quickly, we will revisit this top story later in the program, but we did want to make sure we give a shout out to our top story, which is always brought to you by our friends at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options, where everything is cost plus 10 at the register. Once again, top story brought to you by our friends at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill. And we will visit this story later, but our headline, not a top story, but how about our headline, Blaine, is that South Carolina, the women's college basketball supremacy, they saw their 43-game win streak snapped over the weekend. So I feel like that's worthy of mentioning a little bit later in the show, but in the interest of time, let's head into a quick break. On the other side of this timeout, out of our top story, once again, thanks to our friends at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill. On the other side of this break, we will jump back into pro football. We will talk with Sam PHALEN of A to Z Sports about the Tennessee Titans and their 32-27 win versus the Houston Texans. Come back with us here. You're watching Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Well, we went all out for you this year, didn't we, little girl? Yep, we got you what you wanted with all the bells and whistles.
A brand new car?
Let's go check it out. Come on. We're here.
Oh my gosh, we're going to the garage. I got a car.
Yep, let's get in here. Let me show you what's going on.
Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Duggar, got your 18-series heat pump with your ultraviolet home treatment system.
I cannot believe it. Thank you.
Yes! Give the gift of clean air this year. Merry Christmas from the Busy Bee family.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you. No matter what's happening in the world, or at your house.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back, folks. Hour number one of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, rolling right along alongside Blaine Keller, Wade Neely saying hello. We talked about it at the start of the show. The Titans go on the road and defeat the Houston Texans. That alone is worthy of mentioning, but even more worthy is the fact that we get to chat with our good friend from A to Z Sports, Sam PHALEN. And Sam, as we welcome you in, I guess just give me your initial reaction to what you just witnessed like we all did yesterday in Houston.
Man, I didn't see it coming. I can tell you that much, Wade. But, I think it really was a coming out party a little bit for Will Levis, who has looked incrementally better every week since returning from his shoulder injury. I think he managed the game appropriately against the Chargers, had a few flash plays against the Vikings, and then even with the pick six that he threw against the Texans on Sunday afternoon, I really felt like this was the vision for what Brian Callahan intends for the Will Levis-led offense to be. So one of those games that I think will instill the Titans with a lot of confidence moving forward. We've heard from this coaching staff and players in the locker room all throughout the year about being so close, the ball just needing to bounce their way, things needing to sort of fall into their lap. And finally, it feels like they broke through and they got those lucky breaks. Against the Vikings, the 50-plus yard touchdown to Calvin Ridley gets called back for the illegal formation. Well, against the Texans, the game-winning touchdown to Nico Collins gets called back for a similar penalty. The Titans benefit from this one and end up coming out on top. So this was sort of a course correction for the team and really, I think, leads to a lot of positive momentum for Will Levis moving forward.
Yeah, it was kind of bizarro world in that sense yesterday, right? All the breaks were kind of going oddly in the Titans' favor. I found myself not really sure what to make of all that as the game was unfolding yesterday. It felt weird.
Yeah, a little bit of a correction to the mean. I mean, I don't believe in blaming bad luck on a lot of this team's misfortune for a 3-8 start, but there has certainly been some penalty calls, some bad bounces, some things that have just not gone their way when it comes to officiating or just luck of quite literally the bounce of the football. So I do think this was a little correction to the mean. You saw the Titans get some takeaways, which we haven't really seen at all this year, and not necessarily from their own, doing. Yeah, ball gets thrown right into Jarvis Brownlee's stomach, and look what I found. Here's an interception that's going to lead to points before the half. Nick Folk hits 3 field goals of 50-plus yards, which ended up Titans needed every last one of those as well. You get the first career sack from Tavondre Sweat, who had been getting at the quarterback and somehow not getting the quarterback on the ground. So this is more, just kind of a breakthrough for so many different areas of this team.
Sam, so much could be said about Will Levis's continued performance these past 3 weeks. Is it possible to overstate the impact of Tony Pollard also, especially coming off the performance he had in Minnesota, having the 5th best rushing yardage of his career? Just that kind of bounce back that he had and the stability he's been able to provide while stepping into Derrick Henry's shoes.
Yeah, Tony Pollard's been tremendous all year. He's had a couple blips where just the run game has been bottled up entirely. But what he's able to do for the Titans, especially in a game like Sunday against the Texans, is put them into manageable situations where then the playbook is wide open for Brian Callahan, and therefore the playbook is wide open for Will Levis. We saw so much success in the passing game. These explosive passes set up off of play action, set up off of, being able to sell the run and roll Will Levis out of the pocket and take shots down the field on 2nd and manageable or 3rd and manageable. And you can't do that if Tony Pollard's not running the ball effectively and if you're behind the sticks. I think, we are starting to see Brian Callahan find his groove in regards to the run game. Earlier in the year, I was very critical of the Titans coaching staff for leaning too much on the run game. It felt like their play calling was a little bit too conservative. Like we were taking what Will Levis does best, explosive pass plays and deep shots down the field, and eliminating it from the offensive game plan under the idea that we were going to run the ball and bleed the clock and win a game, a Mike Vrabel kind of game. But you don't have the unit to do that. And I think, we've seen a little bit of both from the Titans throughout the year. And the Houston game was a perfect marriage of how Tony Pollard can help Will Levis, and you can still take your shots and throw the ball down the field while having a running back set the tone. And like you mentioned, not exactly something I saw coming or Titans fans saw coming, that Pollard would be this good in the shoes of Derrick Henry, but he is absolutely having the best football stretch of his career right now.
It's been fun to watch Pollard running as well and catching passes, obviously, as well. Talking with Sam Phelan, A to Z Sports, breaking down the Titans and their big win yesterday. And Sam, it seems like you tiptoe into more the optimistic realm because there were so many unusual NFL scores yesterday. I kind of almost want to just say, the Titans maybe were just due to win one in a random sense. But to your point, you kind of sold me a moment ago. I could see this potentially being the building block of what I'm not exactly sure. So that's why I guess I'm curious. What is the potential new ceiling for this team this year in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, this year, I'm not sure, right? It probably just muddies the waters. I think they have some winnable games left on the schedule, 2 against Jacksonville, 1 against the Colts. We just saw that they can beat the Texans. I don't see a game on the schedule that I don't think the Titans can win. Do I think they're going to win out? No, but I think, they're going to play more competitive football moving forward. For me, it's the culmination of what we saw being built that we then had stripped from us abruptly with Will Levis's injury. You can watch the game against Chicago in week 1 and know that it was really bad football from the Titans quarterback. And he got somewhat better against, the Jets in the next week. And then he got a little bit better the week after that against Green Bay, but you were still saying, knock it off with the turnovers. Let's try and play a more clean game. The injury then derailed a lot of the momentum the Titans had building. And then you started to see the offensive line playing better, especially on the left side of the line with J.C. Latham and Peter Skoronski and Lloyd Cushenberry at that point in time. But then you didn't have the quarterback in there who was supposed to make everything go. Now with Will Levis back on the field, healthy, with that left side of the line playing a little bit better, as Brian Callahan has sort of figured out how to use Calvin Ridley in the most effective way, with Nick Westbrook-Ikine finally on the field getting snaps and getting targets instead of Treylon Burks, the Titans offense is looking a little bit more complete. So, I think we've seen them moving the football and not necessarily converting in the red zone on touchdowns and turning in these big 30-point efforts, but Will Levis has been a very good, very solid quarterback option for the Titans in 3 weeks against a couple of very good defenses in the Texans and Vikings in the last 2. And he's found a way to, make big plays against both of them. So I'm optimistic. I still think the final 6 games of the season here are an opportunity for Will Levis to prove that he's the guy in 2025 and beyond. And how many games he wins along the way will probably be the thing that determines that.
There's that age-old argument, though, at least from the fan base perspective of, yes, these games are winnable, but what do they accomplish? So in your mind, how do you kind of weigh between let's just go ahead and, of course no one would say turn it in, but between being a fun kind of bad team that could win a couple games down the stretch, or someone who's maybe doing what the Giants are doing right now and trying to secure a top pick?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to like the players that are on this team. If I were a Titans fan right now watching a bunch of veterans, roll out there, I'd be kind of not caring if they win or lose either. But one thing Brian Callahan has been quick to point out is that so many of the players making plays for the Titans are young, are guys that are part of their future. I mean, your starting cornerbacks right now are Roger McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., and Daryl Baker, who was a waiver claim that the Titans made right before the start of the regular season, but is a young guy that you could see being part of this defense moving forward. A rookie in Brownlee who was drafted to be a backup that can play inside or outside, who is now your CB1, getting opportunities against guys like Justin Jefferson and Nico Collins and performing pretty admirably against them. So I think those are all reasons for you to root for the Titans to succeed, because it's not like you're sending out, the Daryl Worleys of the world, and that's the guy that's critical and making the plays to win or lose. Offensively, it's still J.C. Latham. It's still Peter Skoronski. It's still a young quarterback in Will Levis and, weapons like Calvin Ridley who are going to be here in the future. So I see a lot more longevity within this core than maybe you would have with a team like the New York Giants right now. And I think that's a reason for Titans fans to be more optimistic about a win than if they were just another team cashing it in for a tank or a draft pick.
I love it. And I love what you said about Brownlee too. That's a guy I've been impressed with really since training camp. I hate to be the bad guy though, but we do at least got to address what is going on with special teams and kind of what, if anything, can be resolved for a team that is now showing promise. That could really cost you in a key situation if you're not careful in a winnable game.
Yeah, it continues to cost them. But yeah, at this point, I've just sort of subscribed to the idea that this is not a group that has the talent to succeed on special teams, and they're not well coached at the positions. I think Colt Anderson is if I could place a bet that I had a 100% guarantee of hitting, it would be Colt Anderson to be fired by the Titans at the end of the 2024 season. Now, the real question right now is, does he make it through the season? Does Brian Callahan have the guts to make that move on a personal friend of his mid-season? Is he confident in some of the guys on his coaching staff to step up and fill that role? I don't know. But, I think he'll be gone. I think they need to just burn the whole thing down and start to, figure out what they need to do better. They need another player acquisition cycle. One thing the Titans did this past offseason and throughout training camp was get rid of a number of guys that were key special teamers for them. We saw them take Julius Chestnut as their third running back instead of Hassan Haskins. We saw them trade Elijah Molden to the LA Chargers for a 7th round draft pick. And Molden is not only a good safety for the Chargers right now, he's a key special teamer. They've done this at cornerback. They've done this at linebacker. They've missed some of their key special team impact guys. And moving forward, I think it's going to be a big concern for Brian Callahan, for Rand Carthon throughout the next cycle of player acquisition to, one, hire the best special teams coordinator possible, hopefully not a guy who has no experience as a coordinator before. You need to get somebody proven. And then, also make sure there's an emphasis on the guys that you're signing that they can also be impactful in that area.
So, Sam, it took last year Ryan Stonehouse pretty much having his leg crippled for Craig Aukerman to be fired in the season. Craig Aukerman, not a good special teams coordinator. He got the boot. Do you see a world where there's a worse performance than what the Titans are putting together right now that could cause something like that?
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, unless it's another game like you have against Chicago where there's like a blocked punt that directly loses you a game or a kick return that directly loses you a game. It's hard to imagine them being worse than they are right now. There seems to be one or two errors on special teams that cost them points every game. And I mean, outside of one semi-decent return from Julius Chestnut on Sunday against the Texans, I don't remember a positive special teams play going the Titans' way on a punt or kick return. So it's not just all of the negative. I don't think there's another team around the NFL that has had as much a lack of good positive plays. I feel like I look up at NFL scores, I see a special teams highlight for some team just about every week. For the Titans, it's been a big goose egg.
Yeah, it's been tough in that regard, and you made a great point. It's not just that it's negative, but there's just zero positive kind of on that front too, to at least give you a little glimmer of hope, right?
Right. No, absolutely right. I mean, your returners have been bad. You know, you don't have much explosive kick return options. Jaquan Jackson had made questionable decisions on punt return, whether it's catching a ball at the 5-yard line that was probably going to bounce into the end zone, or returning a punt and fumbling it right at a critical moment when you need the ball back. It feels like right when the Titans start to build momentum, they find a way to mess it up on special teams, penalties by their gunners, just, you know, blown coverages. Difficult to explain, and not enough positive payoff on it to make you feel optimism.
Yeah, and it's one of those nebulous kind of units where it's hard to pinpoint. I kind of see what you're saying. So
well, they've tried to pinpoint it all kinds of different places.
Right, yeah.
For a while that it was a Ryan Stonehouse issue and he wasn't getting enough hang time on the ball. And when we asked Ryan Stonehouse in the locker room, he said, well, they haven't asked me to put more hang time on it. I can do that, no problem. The next game had more hang time on the ball, and they still give up a couple of big returns, and they blamed it on the Gunners. Then we heard that the Gunners were fixed with Justin Hardy and Trey Avery coming in, that they fixed that problem, and you're still giving up some big returns because Mike Brown doesn't keep contain on a kick return. You're still muffing punts because Jaquan Jackson's making poor decisions. It's an endless cycle at this point.
Sam Phalen of A to Z Sports talking Titans as they got a win yesterday down in Houston. Sam, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. I get a text every Wednesday from my mom, and it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and I've gotten nothing but thumbs up thus far. What can you tell us about where we sit with Survivor 47?
Well, we're at the final 8, man. We're coming down to the gauntlet here. This is where the fun begins. This is where the stakes get high. So, you know, been doing just enough to survive and advance. And, you know, now it's time to put the foot on the gas pedal a little bit and go try to win this thing. So it's going to heat up here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It sounds like you got some grittiness about you, which I like.
I always got grit, man. Yeah, I went into the game knowing I was going to have to get a little bit gritty. So that was not a surprise for me, but you know, this is where you need it. You're day 20 coming up on the island, and you're going to need to empty the tank, leave it all out there, and see what happens.
I love it. Yeah, you don't just be a Lipscomb legend and then go to Survivor just to get bounced on the first round. So.
Exactly. That's what I'm
love
saying.
It. Sam, thank you for your time as always, brother. And we look forward to seeing you Wednesday, but we also look forward to seeing you back at Nissan real soon.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Sam Phalen of A to Z Sports talking Titans, as the boys in two-tone blue, again, picked up a 32-27 win down in Houston yesterday. That was one NFL game, though, Blaine. There are several. I mean, there were several head scratchers across the league yesterday. And when we take we'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, we will break down some of those. Some teams surviving a scare, some teams not as lucky, but we'll get into some more NFL discussion on the final segment of hour number 1. You're watching Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Blaine and I return right after this.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Welcome back, gang. Watching Main Street Sports today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia, alongside Blaine Keller. Wayne Neely saying hello. We come to you from the Lee Company Mobile Studios. Just talked with Sam PHALEN of A to Z Sports, breaking down the Titans and their 32-27 win down in Houston yesterday. And Blaine, before we get into the rest of the NFL, a friend of mine and I were talking about this earlier today, and I guess I want your thoughts. You know, so much about Levis, Will Levis, the Titans quarterback now, is kind of, okay, yeah, he's doing this, but the sacks and the pocket presence are kind of the detractor that everybody's kind of pointing to. And me and a friend were kind of debating this, is how much of that is teachable in your mind, or how much of that is just simply you either got it or you don't? I'm just curious where you land on that.
Well, when you go into the stretch that Mason Rudolph had as the Titans fill-in quarterback, the sack numbers are way down in that little span that he was starting in place of an injured Levis. You compare the stats between the two, he took a lot less sacks. Some of that might have been some better offensive line play, but again, a lot of that falls onto the quarterback, where Rudolph would throw it out of bounds or try to just get the ball out quicker. If it is teachable, you have a pretty seasoned veteran and a guy who knows how to do that right behind Will Levis, who could maybe teach him how to do that through the rest of this year. I think it was a bit more of a concern in this game than in the Vikings game. If you go back to the Chargers game 3 weeks ago when he came back from his AC joint injury, that it was an issue then. The Chargers got him quite a few times, and the thought was quite a few of those are on Will Levis. Against the Vikings, he had pretty good pocket awareness. It just came back to haunt him a little bit, even though he got the win in Houston. So I think that it's not something that's an every week issue. And if it is teachable, it's something he could probably learn from a guy who can get the ball out pretty quick in Mason Rudolph.
Absolutely. He's got that leadership. And, you know, it'll be interesting to watch these next couple of games for the Titans. I think a lot of fans would still, as frustrating as it can be, if you tell fans before the game Levis is going to have a couple boneheaded plays or a stinker of a game, but you're going to win the game, winning still cures all. So we kind of got a little bit of both. So I was curious about that. I mentioned pocket presence because yesterday across the league, there were a number of crazy games, but we start in Carolina where the Panthers sacked Patrick Mahomes 5 times and nearly pulled off what would have been one of the wilder NFL regular season upsets, I feel like, in a long time. But somehow, stop me if you've heard this before, Blaine, but somehow, some way, the Chiefs grind out a win despite only scoring 3 points in the fourth quarter, the final 3 points, and they win at 30-27.
Yeah, this might have been Bryce Young's best game as a pro. I looked up his stats, 21-35, 263 and a touchdown. I think he was only sacked twice. That benching that they, went to Andy Dalton for a couple of games, maybe that's kind of working out for them. Bryce Young played really well in this game against the top team in the league right now. And you got to give credit to him and Dave Canales for what they might actually be putting together. I feel better about saying this is kind of a really good step for Carolina than a misstep for the Chiefs. They've kind of just won games ugly all year long.
Yeah, I'm with you. Carolina, it feels like, I mean, you are what your record says you are in many respects, but man, yeah, there's kind of some head scratching going on in Carolina, both with the franchise overall. Are we maybe a little better than we thought? Or to your point, you made a great observation a moment ago talking about Bryce Young. He didn't just light it up in terms of touchdowns and completion percentage, but very efficient versus a really good defense. No interceptions yesterday. Feels like they maybe are onto something, and that seems very odd considering the way that whole benching and that situation unfolded.
Yeah, they got Adam Thielen back. I mean, that was kind of the one piece that maybe tipped the needle toward Carolina having a better offensive performance. But outside of that, the bones are kind of there. The Panthers have had a pretty impressive offensive line, at least through the first stretch of the season, and they were kind of just missing consistent quarterback play. They've got 3 or 4 guys at running back that could give you a solid performance. And, of course, they have some receivers that can impress. I kind of like – I was following that score all day yesterday. Carolina went down and got the touchdown to bring it within 2. Then I thought, it's going to end 27-25. They'll fail on the 2-point. But then they got the 2-point. They were really one Patrick Mahomes scramble away from going into overtime.
And it's wild how, for as gifted as he is as a passer, he just magically has found some of these scrambles in key situations.
Yeah.
As Kansas City, again, they improved to 10-1. Carolina falls to 3-8. Other end of the spectrum, this is #ugly game, but we at least probably should talk about more so on the losing team's side of things. What do you take away, Blaine, from a 34-26 Cowboys win, or is it a 34-26 bad Commanders loss in your mind?
It is a disgusting Commanders loss in my mind. We talk about bad special teams. That was probably a fireable offense in Washington, what they put on. Austin Seibert, it is what it is. Kickers, have their mojo, then they don't. Washington, of course, tying that game and then missing the extra point. But I'm more focused on Kevontae Turpin. I don't know if you saw this play, Wade. He loses the ball, goes to the 1 on the kickoff, and then spins out of at least 4 defenders to return it for a touchdown. I'm a TCU fan. I love Kevontae Turpin, but you got to wrap up that guy if you have him grabbing the ball at the 1-yard line.
Yeah, and the little bit of the game that I caught, this is the way my afternoon went. I was in and out all day yesterday, but caught just enough of that to, scratch my head and say, how in the world did that just happen? And to your point, Turpin's explosive. We've seen him make some great magic, especially in open space. But woof, as Washington falls now to 7-5, still feels like they're okay, and it still feels like they're well ahead of schedule, I think, where they thought they'd be coming into this season. But man, to your point, that is a putrid loss, it feels like, to the Cowboys, who felt like death warmed over coming into that game.
Yeah, well, when I was looking at the Titans' schedule, kind of going back to alluding to that Jacksonville game coming up, I thought they'll lose to the Texans. They'll definitely lose to Washington. You see the performance yesterday. I don't think it's that clear cut.
No, and it feels like something's up a little bit too, with Daniels coming back from the injury, and I don't know if they're not running as much. There's been some chatter about, Cliff Kingsbury and that offense kind of doing what he's done before and kind of fading a little bit in the second half of seasons. To your point, I mean, Titans Commanders doesn't seem, just based off yesterday's results, we'll be in for some ugly special teams in that game, it sounds like, if nothing else. But that will be one to keep your eyes on. Speaking of kind of head scratchers, you got something else?
Important note from that game, I'd say.
Hit me with
in the rushing department. Brian Robinson Jr., I believe, went out in the first quarter. So that's one of their top running backs. Then you're kind of left with Austin Eckler, which couple of years ago would have been nice.
The ghost of Austin Eckler.
Yeah, the ghost of Austin Eckler at running back. So maybe Cliff's hands were tied a little bit in the rushing department. But I think that they've just had problems these past couple of games. It's not just a one blip of the radar thing.
Yeah, that will bear watching. That's a good point too. I forgot about Robinson departing. Yeah, he's a key factor in that offense. Other games that kind of caught our eye. What do we make of the Seahawks? Well, they've done this every game, it feels like this year. They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. But they absolutely kind of manhandled the Arizona Cardinals, holding them to just 6 points in a 16-6 win yesterday. Those teams are now tied in the NFC West.
I think this Seahawks team has been pretty fun to watch from afar. As a fantasy owner of Kenneth Walker III,
yes,
the more Geno Smith checks down to Kenneth Walker, the better I feel. As long as we can keep those check down passes going and those short passes to the running back, I'm happy. You knew the defense was going to be good with Mike McDonald taking over in Seattle, and of course they've got Ernest Jones now, a former Titan, helping out their defense. But I think they've been able to really hang tough with just about everybody they've played so far.
Yeah, and I was just when I started to kind of trust Arizona a little bit. Mo and I talked about it last week, 2 weeks ago even. That division is up for grabs, and it feels like it's going to be a one-bid division in terms of playoffs. So perhaps whoever gets hot down the stretch. So we'll keep tabs on that. Speaking of that division, the 49ers, banged up, obviously, been the theme of their entire season. So, you can make the case the season from hell, if you will, in terms of injuries for the 49ers. But did you take anything extra, good or bad, away as the Packers absolutely whooped them in Lambeau yesterday, 38-10? And it could have been worse, it feels like, that 38-10 score.
Yeah, just as soon as you get Christian McCaffrey back, now, good luck playing without Brock Purdy. Brandon Allen's got to be the guy. And anytime, no offense to Brandon Allen, but anytime Brandon Allen has to be the guy, even with those weapons, it's not really going to happen. Against the Packers especially. They're in a bad place right now, and I don't know if there's enough time for San Francisco to turn this around and eke it into a wild card spot. But I'll say this, if they make it into the playoffs, I still don't want to play them.
No.
If you're any other team in the NFL, you don't want to face that team in the playoffs, even if they're, a 9-7 or something.
No, I agree, especially if Purdy's back, especially if Debo, we saw him with an electric return. It got called back on a penalty, but I'm with you. But it was a little jarring to see the Packers kind of run it up on the 49ers. Josh Jacobs, 3 rushing touchdowns. He was a brute back there for Green Bay. That was kind of a head scratcher. That division is going to be fun to watch as we close it out. Speaking of as we close it out, the hottest debate in the streets, the NFL streets, at least, Blaine, is after what we saw last night from Saquon Barkley, is there a chance that this guy could maybe become the first running back to win MVP since 2012?
Who would you take in Saquon's place at this point, just with the kind of season he's having? I'm not sure. There's a conversation for other guys, but Saquon's he set the single game record last night, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I'm trying to pull up his exact numbers here. 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. The 72-yard run at the end of the game was just ridiculous. I don't know. It just feels like it just poof. Obviously, that big of a performance on that big of a stage in primetime will kind of generate a little more buzz. But
that's a career high, of course, for Saquon, and a league high most rushing yards in an NFL game.
Unreal. And then, Lamar's kind of dipped. Josh Allen was off yesterday, I think. I could be talked into Allen versus Barkley down the stretch here. I could sign up for that.
Especially with what Allen's kind of had as his receivers this year. Amari Cooper trade aside, having Khalil Shakir and Mac Hollins and Dalton Kincaid's great, but he didn't come in having a Stephon Diggs like he did the past couple of years. He had, a tandem of guys who were all supposed to kind of contribute together as the number one.
Yeah, that will be an interesting race. If it, to me at least, it feels like it could be those two guys. Mahomes doing great things and winning games, but it just doesn't feel like the numbers are there. So it's going to be fun as Blaine and I kind of spun it around the NFL there. But at the beginning of the show, we told you guys we could have done a whole 2-hour show on college football. We will do an hour, and we will get into hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, right after this. You are not going to want to miss all the mayhem from this past Saturday, and we have a special visit from OVC Assistant Commissioner Kyle Schwartz in our second segment. So come back for hour number 2. Blaine and I return right after this here on Main Street Sports Today.
Nashville's Nutcracker returns to TPAC this December, presented by Nashville Ballet. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets at NashvilleBallet.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today. Wade?
Back with you, yeah, and hour number 2 is going to be jam-packed alongside my trusty colleague, Blaine Keller. Wade Neely saying hello. We are presented, as always, by TOA of Columbia, and we come to you from the Lee Company Mobile Studios. And Blaine, let's just dive right in. College football. This is the sport that always, it seems like every year there's one weekend where things kind of just get absolutely blown up. And maybe with the 12-team playoff this year, the ramifications are not quite as intense. But we got our weekend last Saturday as 7 teams in the top 25 all fall, ranging from as high as number 5 all the way down into the 20s. But from top to bottom, it was absolute anarchy on Saturday.
Yeah, I think if there was a team that I think struggled or suffered the most out of it, I was watching the Ole Miss Florida game. Number 9 Ole Miss really just couldn't get anything going in the swamp, and it's one of those games where you get caught looking ahead a little bit. Maybe you see the next couple of games on Ole Miss's schedule and think, okay, we went out, we're in the playoff, and not kind of seeing the other side of that equation of if Jackson Dart throws 3 interceptions and if we can't stop DJ Lagway, then we're out of the playoffs pretty much mathematically. I think of the teams that lost, that might be the biggest in my mind.
Yeah, Ole Miss, Mo and I mentioned it, or we talked about it at least right before our picks last week. I said, Ole Miss feels like they're on the return, but I don't know, just something. I didn't think Florida had the goods as well as they've been playing to get. It felt like Ole Miss had kind of turned the corner, but just when you think you can trust a Lane Kiffin team, they kind of wad that one up and throw it away. And Jackson Dart, yeah, I mean, did his best. It felt you got to give Ole Miss a little credit because it felt like some other teams, as much stuff was going against Ole Miss, would have maybe perhaps crumpled at some points, but they at least still had a shot down the stretch. But man, for a team as talented and as loaded as they are, and the expectations they had coming into this season, I mean, they have had a bad year. I mean, 2 of the 3 losses, when you look at it now, obviously Kentucky and Florida.
Not
LSU, make of it what you will. I know it was an overtime game, but man, those are 3 ugly losses.
And you could give some credit to Florida, and I feel like I'm going to touch on that a little bit more here as we continue in our college football segment. But Florida feels okay. I'm not totally out on that Florida loss.
This Florida team, currently,
right.
As we sit here on November 25th, yes.
Yes. If it were, the first couple of weeks Florida team, then yeah, we're talking a different story. But when it's compounded with LSU and compounded with Kentucky, 2 teams that are not great, one of which is not going bowling, then yeah, it's not a good look considering all of the resources pushed in to Ole Miss this season.
Man, and we talk about it, I mentioned this a lot, but I mean, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you're just buying a ticket to the roller coaster, right? Because, I mean, this is a team that is capable of beating anybody in the country on any given Saturday. But we're talking about a team with losses to Kentucky at home, a loss, like I said, to LSU in overtime, but then the Florida loss too. They can also lose to anybody. I am with you that Ole Miss, it was there for the taking. Despite already 2 losses on their docket, it felt like everything was kind of breaking in their favor. But they see it come crashing down in the loss down in the swamp. Other side, let's stay in the SEC, Blaine. Alabama, whoa, in and out of the top 10 all year. And another team, just when you thought you could trust these guys, they laid an absolute egg Saturday night in Norman.
Yeah, I think it kind of similar story as Ole Miss, right? Because those losses are compounded with Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Tennessee, a good team. Vanderbilt, pretty good. This one makes no sense, though. This one, I don't think anybody could see coming. I'm sure people in the stands in Norman couldn't see it coming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Oklahoma has had a horrible season. Not just by their standards, but by college football standards. They've been bad. And then they go and upset Alabama? Just speaks to the randomness of I feel like this college football season was like last year's college basketball season, or the year before, I think it was, where there wasn't a true number 1. You can make a case for Oregon, but it feels like there's nobody who's so dominant as it's been in years past that you say that's the national champion.
I agree. And, as kind of my Michigan fandom, I realized after about week 2 that they had no real shot to be in this thing. And so basically put me in as a neutral observer. For a neutral observer, it's fun to kind of watch the bedlam because
see the chaos.
every week is just something different. Now, if you're a fan of any of these teams that are all in the mix, keep the Maylocks close by, it feels like, because it has been rough. So, I mean, that does beg the question, Blaine. Tennessee is sitting there basically on a bye, even though they didn't necessarily look great at times versus UTEP, but they're basically watching these scores come in at various points throughout the day. Tennessee feels like they're almost a lock to get in this playoff now, assuming they win Saturday at Vanderbilt, right?
Assuming if, and that's a big if, much bigger than it's been in the past.
Yes.
Vanderbilt, I know they really hung in with LSU, and they aren't kind of on that same tear that they were in the early portion of the season. This is still a really good Vanderbilt team that's going to have a lot to play for on Saturday. And maybe that's my Vanderbilt fandom speaking there, but I think it'd be such a fitting end to this turnaround to Vandy's season, to Vandy's program, for them to really lock the door on those playoff hopes for Tennessee by beating them in the last game of the regular season.
I'm with you. I think Vanderbilt's mojo, they've had a great season. And a couple of weeks ago, Tennessee is favored by about 11, I think, last I checked in this game.
Is what I saw.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's double digits.
They're really inconsistent. And all it takes is I don't think they scored in the first quarter against UTEP, right?
No, yeah.
Yeah. You get out to another slow start, like they've been kind of prone to, see the Arkansas game. You get off to a slow start, Vanderbilt's going to take advantage of that.
I agree. The mojo that Vanderbilt has kind of lost, all it takes is one bad quarter or one big play, and it feels like they'll be rocking. There will be a lot of orange, obviously. We'll talk about that game as this week unfolds. But, that is something you got to be very careful of if you're Tennessee. We also saw losses, thoughts and prayers or happy trails, if you will. Indiana, I feel like we just barely knew you as far as the college football darling. But wait, Indiana is technically still kind of hanging around the chicken coop despite the blowout loss at Ohio State, Blaine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, every year there is some non-SEC team that has this kind of really impressive season. And you can say what you want about the strength of schedule, but simply because they're not in the SEC fandom says they should not be in the college football playoff. And there was an argument maybe to be made when it was 4 teams and, a pretty deserving, third or fourth SEC team was going to be left out of the college football playoff. Now that you've got 12 teams, we can't take the whole conference, guys. Let some other conferences that have, grown their, league as much as they could. If Indiana has one loss on the year, Indiana, I think, should be in the college football playoff. Record be darned.
That would be,
I guess, strength of schedule be darned.
There we go. That was the big thing coming into that game, right? Was that Indiana had not really played much in terms of competition. And if you're putting it down to a 1-game sample size, we've talked a lot about special teams, much more than I thought we would on this show, but they had some horrific special teams woes in that one. Rankings will come out tomorrow, so we'll be keeping tabs on them, but it feels like Tennessee is kind of back in there. Blaine, as we get ready to wrap up this segment here in just a moment, we do finally, for all the muddiness and all the craziness, some conferences, we're looking at you, Big 12, are still, I think I read like 256 possibilities still to determine this weekend for the Big 12. But the SEC is relatively clear after all the carnage from this past weekend. Alabama is now officially out. They no longer control their own destiny. Georgia, who will not have played an SEC game for a couple of weeks, they are in, and they will get the winner of Texas and Texas A&M. You're a big Texas guy. Folks are fired up for this game, and now it's got massive implications.
I'm a big TCU guy. DFW, born and raised.
State of Texas guy.
As a TCU fan, I'm not leaning toward Texas or Texas A&M. I hope.
Good answer.
In my mind, I hope they both have a bad game. That's my fandom speaking as someone who views TCU as the school of the state.
I'm with you, and we've mentioned for the last 3 weeks now, it felt like the significance of that game was going to be paramount. But that is your official scenario. The winner of that game will meet Georgia. And I saw a crazy – let me see if I can dig this up just very quickly. This is bad radio, but I think I can find it real quick. There's a graphic floating around. The internet, is undefeated. But this is technically true. Teams that have beaten at least teams that have played at least 2 SEC opponents with a winning record in conference play.
Oh, yeah, UMass, right?
And all of the teams in the SEC and UMass, except for Texas. Texas is the only team that is yet to do that. So it definitely feels like all the pressure is on the Longhorns coming into this game, in my mind at least.
Yeah, I'd agree. And, how's Texas A&M going to respond after that loss to Auburn? And one quick note here, as we went through this college football season, I felt like 2 of the most fireable men in the sport, Billy Napier and Hugh Freeze, have kind of saved their jobs with a couple of big wins. Billy Napier's won a few big games this year. Hugh Freeze definitely did a lot for his job security, maybe secured another season by beating Texas A&M last week. But I'm curious to see how A&M responds after that one, how they're going to come out against what like you said is that de facto semifinal for the conference championship game.
Absolutely. Other teams that fell by the wayside this weekend, BYU goes down in a crazy one versus Arizona State, and Colorado. Man, Mo and I talked about it last week. Something's up with Kansas. They look like they could beat anybody right now as they knock the Buffs out of the control of their own destiny realm. We also saw Notre Dame take care of Army at Yankee Stadium. So it was a bloodbath. 7 teams in the top 25 all fell. And again, the implications will really be put into full focus after this weekend. Final week of the regular season is still to come. Meanwhile, Blaine, across the country, in an ACC battle, no less, who thought we'd be saying that about this game? But we had video of the Cal quarterback delivering a really cool speech as Cal and Stanford, not exactly the rivalry that maybe it perhaps once was, but you got to check this clip out as we close up some of our college football talk. I thought it was a good one to play.
21-10 at the start of the fourth quarter. What did it take to come back?
Hey, first of all, I want to give all the glory to God. That was an amazing comeback. It's a testament how tough we are as a team. I love my boys. It's amazing. I'm so proud of everyone's team. We're 6-6. We're bold bound, and we retain the axe. Go Bears forever. Let's go.
You were so emotional right now, Fernando, in this moment. What's bringing out these emotions for you?
We worked so hard. We worked so hard for this. I apologize for getting emotional, but it's so hard. As an offense, we've done everything that we possibly could have throughout the summer to being down, having a close game. This has to be the most special moment in my life today.
Look around at these fans in this moment. What will you remember most from this victory today?
I remember going 98 yards with my boys. 98 yards at that moment we told them, this is why we did the camping trip. This is why we did every Saturday walkthrough. This is why we stayed late until 9 p.m. watching film together. And so that meant so much to me to go 98 yards against a defense that's been playing great. And we ended up scoring in the clutch.
Fernando, you told us yesterday you just want to hold that axe. So go hold that axe and enjoy this.
Thank you. Go Bears. Let's go.
That was Fernando Mendoza, Cal Bears quarterback, as they rally going 98 yards to defeat Stanford. Not exactly the most headline grab drive, driving 98 yards to beat Stanford, who's only won a handful of games. But I kind of got goosebumps listening to that clip again, Blaine, because the passion of college football was kind of bleeding over. And if nothing else, I feel like Fernando's got a T-shirt deal in the works. 98 yards with my boys feels like it's got a good ring to it, right?
What's that? The home field apparel? That sounds like something right up there, alley. Get a shirt deal going there. You mentioned the passion. That's something that's kind of lost on some of these, maybe fans and athletes and things like that. When you start looking at these NIL evaluations and stuff with the state of college sports, I think that emotion kind of side of things can get lost at times. And it takes a Fernando Mendoza or a Diego Pavia to bring that back into the realm. And always great to see something like that. I love it.
That was good stuff. Again, as Cal rallied back, we were glad. Thank you, producer Mark, for pulling that clip. I'm ready to go run through a brick wall now. I was already ready to run through a brick wall after listening to Fernando, but I'm even more pumped because on the other side of this timeout, in the green room, our good buddy Kyle Schwartz, who's the Associate Commissioner of the Ohio Valley Conference, he will join us. Blaine and I will continue college football discussion. It was Selection Sunday as the FCS playoff bracket is set. And spoiler, the OVC was well represented. You're not going to want to miss our sit down with Kyle on the other side of this break. Blaine and I return right after this from the Lee Company Mobile Studios. You are watching Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
He shoots, and he scores!
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Here edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, rolling right along. We are deep in hour number 2, alongside Blaine Keller, Wade Neely saying hello. We come to you from the Lee Company Mobile Studios, and we told you guys we talk a lot of college football here in the second hour. We knocked out one segment, but we now bring in our good friend and Associate Commissioner from the Ohio Valley Conference, Kyle Schwartz, to get a little deeper. Kyle, can we go a little deeper in the weeds on college football? Is that okay with you?
We can go as deep as you all would like.
Man, I'm looking forward to hearing that, or I'm glad to hear that, because we want to tap into a lot of cool stuff. And thank you for joining us today. Selection Sunday for the FCS playoffs was yesterday, and that's maybe not a date that a lot of folks have circled on their calendar, but for a lot of very competitive football schools, including 3 in your conference. It was a very big day, I would imagine, right?
Well, this talk of the 12-team playoff in the FBS, everybody's so excited, and it's great to hear the talk. The FCS has twice as many teams in the playoffs. So, I mean, think about that, 24 teams. So, but there's always a team that thinks they should be in the bracket that isn't too. So we were very fortunate to have 3 of the 24 teams from the OVC, and they'll be competing starting on Saturday. So only the second time we've ever had 3 teams selected to the field. So it's very exciting. Our teams have been working hard. And last year we had 2 teams who were the last 2 teams out, or the first 2 teams out. And this year, they were on the other side of that. So it's great all around.
Yeah, there's OVC matchups, including UT Martin going up against 16 seed New Hampshire, Southeast Missouri State up against 12-seeded Illinois State, and Tennessee State making its first playoff appearance in 11 years, going up against 14-seeded Montana. Kyle, do you, as associate commissioner, kind of have a ballpark in your mind going into Selection Sunday, how many teams you feel like could get in? How intently are you watching that whole process?
Everybody wants to know, and we work closely with the committee rep. We have a rep assigned to us, and they kind of gave us a list of here's 14 teams that might be good for 8 spots. And what we didn't know is if we were going to have a 4-way tie for our championship, and we did. It was only the second time. 1962 was the other that 4 teams tied. So some things happened. TSU beat SEMO. And then we have this big long list of tiebreakers. You can go to our website and see what they are. But SEMO actually won the tiebreaker. They lost to TSU, but SEMO, TSU, UT Martin, and Tennessee Tech finished tied. So SEMO got the automatic bid. And then you're like, well, what's going to happen with the other teams? And TSU had 9 wins, 9 Division I wins, which was big. UT Martin had 8 wins, and they beat an FBS team in Kennesaw. So we had a good idea. It was going to be probably 2. And then we were hoping for the 3rd. And when it came out, we were just glad because the teams have worked so hard and to be where they are right now.
Kyle, I guess I just got to ask you, and you and I were texting a little bit after that TSU win, and I was like, hey, do they get in? And you kind of gave me the, I don't know, we'll see. But what does that do for you guys as a conference? I know you're partnered with the Big South, but especially the OVC. What does that do for you guys from a brand standpoint, and how are you guys going to leverage that as this week unfolds?
That's a good question. And we do have 7 OVC schools, the member institutions that you'd see. And then we have 2 Big South schools that play with us, and our staffs work together. Last year I thought we had a good year. UT Martin thought they should have been in last year. They were in Eastern Illinois, and we only got 1. So then the perception is, whether it's right or wrong, is your league's not very good. And we've had, there's no hiding it. We've had some changeover in teams in the last couple of years. Jacksonville State used to be a power. Yeah. Now, they're going to bowl games in the FBS too. So I think what this does is it shows hey, we have, 12% of the field is our teams from the OVC. And it's also important. They need to go win. Somebody needs to win some games too. It's one thing to get in. They all don't have to go to the semifinals or quarterfinals, but you can't just all go and lose, because then maybe any perception you do have, it will be hurt a little bit.
Which of these matchups do you like the most in regards to that maybe first round win or beyond that for these OVC schools?
That's a good question, Blaine. I was going to tell everybody how they match it up. They seed the top 16 teams. So if you're 1 through 8, you get a bye through the first round. And then if you're 9 through 16, you get a host of first round game. But there was a little bit of a caveat this year. Illinois State's actually seeded, but they're hosting the Illinois State high school playoffs at their field. And they knew this, and they entered into the contract known as a possibility. So they got matched up with SEMO, because after the first round, they try to match people up geographically the best they can. So SEMO is kind of the recipient that they're going to be at home. So I like SEMO being at home. That's always being at home is a big advantage. I think then probably UT Martin. I don't know much about New Hampshire, but I like their matchup. It's a far way to go, though, just to go all the way to New Hampshire. And then, it's a far trip for TSU. Montana, if people aren't familiar with Montana football, and Montana State's the number 1 overall seed as well. Just they don't have pro sports in Montana. Montana and Montana State are the pro sports. There'll be 24,000 people in that stadium, and it's a night game, and it'll be cold. And I'm so happy for TSU. I just think they probably got a tough matchup having to play Montana. SEMO went up there a couple of years ago, and it's just a tough road to play against.
We're talking with Kyle Schwartz. He's the Associate Commissioner of the OVC, breaking things down for the FCS playoffs, which were, again, announced yesterday as they get 3 squads into the playoffs. Kyle, you mentioned TSU, not taking any shine off UT Martin or SEMO, but on the other side of the token, what does that mean for TSU? And what are the vibes like on campus? Because those other 2 teams have been there a heck of a lot more recently than the Tigers, who, as Blaine mentioned, are coming in for the first time since 2013.
Yeah, 11 years. They hadn't won a conference. TSU hadn't won a conference title since 99, which is sort of hard to believe. They won in 98, 99, and then not till this year. So I think it just legitimizes what Coach Eddie George is doing, right? Like everybody knows him. And when he got the job, it was like, how good a coach is he going to be? And I mean, I think he's done an unbelievable job. And I think in this instant society of like, let's win in year one, he did a little, and then they kind of took a step back the next year. And then last year they were better. They had a really tough schedule and kind of lost their last 3 last year. They got to the same position this year, but they won their final 3 to close it out. So I just think helping him legitimize, him being a really good coach and getting talent. They've got some really good players on their team. Sanders Ellis is our freshman of the week this year. He's from Nashville.
Station camp grad. Yeah.
Linebacker. He is a stud. And like just he's getting players like that. Like the name can take you so far, right? Like, oh, it's Eddie George. But until you prove what you're doing, that's only going to really help you. And I just think he's done a great job putting talent together.
Talk a little bit about that 4-way tie that you guys had in the conference. One of those teams, another one regionally, Tennessee Tech. A lot of success under first-year coach Bobby Wilder, right?
I've asked people who's going to be OVC Big South Coach of the Year. We'll know the votes are due at 4:00. We'll know tomorrow. Eddie got named a finalist for the Eddie Robinson Award, which is the FCS National Coach of the Year. Bobby Wilder is probably like one of the ones just off that. I mean, he led Tech to its first winning season in several years, and they've only had 3 winning seasons, I believe, since 2002 now. So what was impressive with him, they played Middle Tennessee the first week, right? And they were right there to the very end. Then they had to play Georgia, which is what you have to do sometimes for the money and to make things right. And then they kind of found their system, and then they won 5 in a row down the end. Probably the best defense in the OVC this year. So and what they're doing there with the construction and what they tore down the one side of the stadium to begin. I know they kind of got some. Scott Van Pelt gave him a hard time on his show one night because you could just see the rubble because they have to clean it out so they can start construction in the spring. But they've just done a good job, and I think good things are going to come there in Cookeville. What does it mean for you guys as a conference too? Obviously, so much success across a number of different sports, but I mean, we're in the SEC footprint. I mean, football is so massive here. What's it mean to you guys? And I guess a little bit, how about the OVC kind of holding up its end of the bargain, so to speak, in terms of this alliance that you guys have with the Big South? Football is important to our schools. And, so I said 7 of our 11 full members have football that play with us. So you just don't do it just for fun, right? So that you need to win some games, and they invest a lot of money into it because it's not cheap to have football. So for us, it just sort of legitimizes us making, football important and doing things to make football successful. You're right. We're in the background. So like if you're a UT Martin fan, you're probably a Tennessee fan, right? If you're a Tennessee Tech fan, you're probably a Tennessee fan. And, it kind of gets lost in the shadows sometimes, but even if you went to one of those schools. So seeing your team, in the playoffs, it makes you feel good if you're an alum or fan too. And then maybe that'll show some pride, and that'll just help build down the road too, is what we're hoping. Kyle, I know you're a big advocate for the conference, of course, affiliated with the OVC, but could you ever imagine a world where the bids for the Ohio Valley Conference kind of rival what the Missouri Valley Football Conference had for a little stretch? They had an average of 4 across a 10-year period. The OVC one short of matching that. We can hope. When I was seeing them, I was like, oh, how many did Missouri? We were pretty sure they were going to get 4. Like, hats off to North Dakota State and South Dakota State. They're just powerhouses. And, with the Missouri Valley, I don't know if we'll get to that point. Like, they're so deep. They have so many teams too. But 3 is the first step. And whether next year, if it's 2, whatever, multiple teams, just trying to keep being our best. It's been, 2015, Jacksonville State went to the national championship game, played North Dakota State, and came up short. So a team from the OVC can do it. We just need to get them there and start winning some games again.
Kyle, obviously exciting stuff with the three teams. I mean, the obvious question is, what is your Saturday going to look like coming up? You're a man that likes to travel and you cover a lot of events. What's your Saturday? You got something dialed up?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out with 3 games, the commissioner is going to go one place. Our associate commissioner, Greg Walter, is going to go another. I'm probably going to go to SEMO is probably the plan right now. We're trying to work all that out. Sometimes, though, it's also easier just to sit by the computer, or whether it's 3 computers and watch them all, because 2 of them are basically happening at the same time, and then one's at night. So right now, our volleyball championship's on my TV up here in my office, and we got basketball going on too. So it's not just football. It's nobody likes the crossover season because every sport's happening right now.
Real quick, you also made a key point. All these games are going to be televised on either ESPN Plus or, in some cases, even on ESPN2 for the FCS playoffs, right?
Yeah, TSU's games on ESPN2. The rest of the first round is on ESPN Plus, so people can find that there. And for our football stuff, Big South OVCfootball.com has all those links and stuff that you need.
That's good stuff. I was picturing, I was hoping you were going to say you were going to Montana. I'm not going to lie. Just picturing you in a giant, beautiful, but I'm just picturing you in a giant parka, just freezing a little bit. We go way back, so I can say that. It was going to be a little delight.
I've been to Montana. It's so beautiful up there, and as I said, they love their football. But I did not draw that straw this week. Real
quickly, Kyle, I do want to ask you. Blaine's, I think, got 1 or 2 as well, but. Football's obviously bleeding over, and we kind of mentioned it a moment ago, but hype us up or sell us on basketball for the OVC this year on men and women's.
Well, people want to say who's the best team. I don't know. I can't tell you all who the best team is now. Those preseason polls, they're like, we do it for social media engagement or whatever. Little Rock men got picked as our preseason favorite. I think they're really good. They've had some injuries, but it wouldn't surprise me if 3 or 4 different teams are in there. TSU, I think, they have a whole new roster on the men's side. I think they're good. The women's side, Southern Indiana, won our championship last year, and I think they're probably our best team now. I like UT Martin a little bit there too, and Tennessee Tech. We got some really good players though. So, we're playing in those big tournaments right now too. You sometimes, Little Rock played Arkansas last week. UT Martin, I think, plays Tennessee this week. It might be so. You're going to take some lumps right now, but I think we have some really good talent in this league, and maybe in a month I'll know who might be our best teams.
You see a rise in Tennessee State, kind of just across the board athletically. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit? The job Coach Penny Collins is doing with that basketball program, ever growing there, and of course what Eddie George has been able to do for that football team.
Yeah, and I think Candace Dupree in her first year with the women's team, they beat Akron at home last week. I think they've just done a great job. And those football and men's basketball obviously get the most attention, and in women's, but there's good things are happening over there with several of those sports. And once one starts winning, I think the football success will help the others too, because then people are like, oh, Tennessee State, I saw you, Eddie George is your football coach. I saw you on TV. Maybe I want to go play softball or volleyball there too. So that success in one doesn't hurt the others. I think it really legitimately helps the other sports too.
Also, Kyle, I hope I saw this correctly. It's worth celebrating if it is. TSU, the lone HBCU representative in the playoffs, correct?
Wow.
You'll see, yes, there's the MEAC and the SWAC their champions play each other in the Celebration Bowl, and that's on ABC. It's a big deal. Lots of money in that kind of bowl game. So if their teams, their champions have to play in that. That's like a deal. And so usually those are obviously their best teams. So if they don't get a second team, then there's not an HBCU from one of those conferences in there. Sometimes there's been at-larges. So yeah, TSU will kind of take that reign and that honor this year.
Like I said, worthy of celebrating for sure. And I think this is going to be fun. This is the FCS playoffs produce. I mean, like you said, the magic has already been created by you guys that we're going to see in a couple weeks when the FBS rolls out those home playoff games. There's just something so fun about seeing a team from Tennessee going out to Montana and playing like that. I mean, it's hard to put it into words, even though it may not be household names to a lot of folks, but it's still fantastic.
I would, please watch the OVC games, but just if a fan's turning on, and again, it's ESPN Plus Monday this weekend, there'll be some more linear ones as we get going, but just look at the atmosphere to Montana and the Montana State and North Dakota State. It's unbelievable. And now it's not 75,000 like an SEC stadium, but they're really good atmospheres, and their teams are fantastic. And there are pro players in the FCS, obviously, right? Like at the beginning of the season, I think there were 10 former OVC people on NFL rosters. So you're going to see quality competition and just really great atmospheres over the next couple of weeks.
Looking forward to it. And Kyle, we would be remiss though. I got two quick items for you. We would be remiss if we didn't ask you. We talked about handicapping basketball teams. Have you come down from the ceiling? Do we got to pull you down by your shoestrings because Kentucky basketball appears to be back, folks?
We've said that before. I think they're a lot better. They're more fun to watch this year. We can put it at that. So that's where I went to school. So big fan, and it's been just 5 games in or wherever they are. It's been a lot more enjoyable in the last 5 years for me. That's for sure.
That was the most PG answer, if you follow Kyle on social media, that you'll ever get. And we also have a common hatred of Duke men's basketball, so that makes us.
Although Cooper Flag is really good, unfortunately. So
he's fun. I hate to admit it.
He should get all the love. He's a little annoying, but he is really, really good.
Absolutely. So I guess that begs the question then: if I give you 2 hypotheticals, Kentucky wins the basketball championship, or you get front row tickets to Dave Matthews. You're one of your favorites at any venue of your choosing. Which one of those are you taking?
Basketball championship, no doubt.
Okay. All right.
Wade's asking the hard balls at the end here. Got a little fastball to the question.
Putting Kyle on the hot seat a little bit here toward the end. So diehard Kentucky supporter, diehard Dave Matthews fan, but first and foremost, outstanding associate commissioner of the OVC. Kyle, thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
Guys, appreciate you having me on and talk a little bit about the OVC and FCS football. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Kyle. Kyle Schwartz, Associate Commissioner of the OVC, chatting with us as we broke it down. Blaine, I mean, the numbers back it up, right? 3 teams. There's been many years where the OVC runner-up is not even getting a whiff of an at-large berth, and now we're talking about 2 at-large berths for this league.
I can definitely think back to when Austin Peay was a member of the Ohio Valley Conference, and there were a few snubs that the Govs would get a runner-up finish or be 3rd place and have a really solid resume and still could not break through. But like you said, it's typically a one-and-done league. And for them to get 3 this year, I was definitely surprised to see that.
And TSU nearly won that league outright, had 1 stub of the toe in the final 3 weeks of the season otherwise. But that was a massive upset to get into that 4-way tie. Real quickly, Blaine, before we go to our final segment, while we're mentioning it, you obviously got that connection there with Austin Peay, and Kyle kind of talked about it. You were right there in the thick of things. That was a program that I think football felt forced for a lot of folks for a number of years, but you've seen firsthand when it works and it works well, it can be a lot of fun to be on that campus.
It's a really interesting league. And Austin Peay can really put together some fun games. This year was not the case for that.
It's been a rarity the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, and if you go back, that's almost kind of surprising to say when you go back and think of what Austin Peay football was maybe 10 years ago, not winning any games, having the nation's longest losing streak, then turning it around and finding a winning success under a couple of coaches that filtered through. And then just having kind of the one bump in the road this year, you hope, at least for Jeff Ferris's sake. But Austin Peay definitely had a couple of injury bugs that hurt them a lot. They lost their starting quarterback in the first game of the year against Louisville. And once you do that, you're not going to be set up for much success at that point.
Absolutely. And again, to Kyle's point, and Blaine broke it down too, these are programs that, maybe not necessarily household names in terms of football, but they have some quality players. They have some great coaches. And when it's done well, it does enhance not just the student-athlete experience, but enhances the campus as well. So thanks to Kyle for joining us. That takes us to our final timeout. When we come back, Blaine and I will dip into the grab bag got a few items we could pull in. We'll probably talk a little college basketball, a couple big games over the weekend. But I got a feeling there's a high school football team, probably several high school football teams that we got to give some props to. Blaine and I will go into all of that and then some as the final segment of the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, comes your way right after this.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Final segment on the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Alongside Blaine Keller, Wade Neely saying hello. We come to you from the Lee Company Mobile Studios. Blaine, it's been a fun show thus far, and
I'd say
we've made it to the grab bag. You know, like I said earlier, we could cover a lot of different topics on this show, but the way that the NFL action went yesterday, but especially college football, and then having that cool segment a moment ago with Kyle Schwartz from the OVC, we kind of had to do our due diligence there. So I felt like that was the right move for us today.
Any fans of pro, high school, college football, really, you got everything that you're looking for. If you missed anything over the weekend, just dip into our show today, and you're gonna be caught up to speed, I feel like.
Absolutely. All that being said, though, we do get into the grab bag, and we're just going to go kind of around the horn for the final segment here. But let's start with the TSSAA state playoffs. The private schools, the Division II schools, have punched all of their championship game tickets, so to speak. The public schools, the D1 schools, are into the semifinals. It's hard to believe, Blaine, because it felt like August was just a few sleeps ago. But we've flown by through this entire regular season, and now just a couple weeks remain in the entire postseason here in Tennessee.
It's gone really fast. And the unfortunate truth, and I'm sure you can agree with this, is that when you go to 10, 12, 13 Fridays in a row for high school football, you don't want to say that, you're rooting against anybody or anything like that, but you feel a little bit of, I'll say that once I was in Marion County last Friday and I saw the scores trending the way they were in my area, it's going to feel good to have a Friday where I'm not sitting in 30-degree weather, is all I'm trying to say. To have at least one Friday where you can take a breath, prepare for basketball instead of having that crossover season like we've talked about. That's nice for sports reporters that are always running at 110 miles an hour.
No doubt about it. And you said it best. And, it's a blessing and a curse if you're covering one or two teams very closely in particular. On one hand, it's so cool to see those teams advance very far, advance very deep. But depending on your season, how it's gone, or depending on, what year it is, making those 2+ hour road trips, especially multiple weeks in a row, that can be pretty difficult. I'm not going to miss that part.
Had it turned out the way that it probably would have, I would have had a smaller trip on Friday with Beach getting the chance to host Paige. But that 2.5 hour trip to Marion County over the, I think, is it the Sewanee Mountain? Sewanee's at the top of that mountain or whatever it is. And with my little tiny compact sedan, that was not the most fun of drives getting there. I think that's all the travel I could do for one season in one Friday alone.
Yeah. I'm with you there. As we saw Giles County bow out a couple weeks ago with East Tennessee trips, and then Richland departed. with a trip to West Tennessee. One team, though, Blaine, that is still playing, and we talked about it earlier in the show. It's a program that's near and dear to your heart. And we talked to Coach Wilson a couple weeks ago. It feels like it was months ago, but just a few short weeks ago, the Springfield Yellow Jackets were 5-5. They were the Region 7 4 seed, and they went on the road and upset Munford, 9-1 Munford, mind you, 32-29. Here we are 2 weeks later. They've knocked off Henry County, and then this past Friday, they knock off Beach, setting up a showdown versus Page, and they get to host this game in Springfield Friday night.
It's one of the craziest stories. Our Robertson County sports reporter, David Wilson, covered it well. Dustin Wilson said he thought his season was over. He thought Springfield's season was over after their first loss to Beach in the regular season finale. They needed a win from Henry County, who beat Hendersonville, to knock Portland out of the playoffs and move them into that 4 seed. They've really exercised some demons each step of the way. Beating Munford. Last year, they lost to that region champion in the first round on the road. Exercised that demon. Time and again, Springfield has made the trip to Paris, to Henry County, and fallen on the road. They take care of business after losing in the regular season at home to the Patriots. And I could not have seen a 47-14 win in any scenario for Springfield. Saying that as an alum, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see this team rushing for 379 yards against a Beach defense that hardly allowed 3 scores to opponents all season long. It just was totally baffling. I saw 20-0, and I thought, is Beach going to come back from this? 20-7, I thought Beach is going to come back from this, because Beach, I think most prognosticators around the state could say that's who's supposed to play Page in the semifinal, according to how the bracket shaked out. And then you see 27-7 and 34-7. And Beach just never got things going against a team that it relatively handled weeks ago. And you have to tip your cap to Dustin Wilson and that coaching staff and what they've been able to bottle up these past couple of weeks.
Unreal effort. And again, we had Coach Wilson on a couple weeks ago on Coach's Corner, and man, an epic run. We'll see if they can get it done. I'm like you. It's one thing. If you'd have told me Springfield was going to win that game, I'd have said, okay, I like the vibes and I love talking with Coach, so I'll buy that. But if you told me they would win 47-14.
Handily, just never in doubt.
That's kind of one that, so that lets me know that these guys are playing with some real mojo. It will take a big effort, of course, coming up versus Page. Real quickly, the bracket is set for the Division II championships, and Mo's not here today. We'll obviously tap into this more with him as the week unfolds. But the bracket is set for the Division II Single A championship, as Nashville Christian will take on the Columbia Academy Bulldogs. That game will kick off at 3 p.m. on Thursday of next week. What is that, the 5th?
6th? 5th? I think it's the 5th.
The 5th, Thursday, December 5th at 3 p.m. It'll be Nashville Christian versus Columbia Academy. That's the second game of the day, however, as all these bids were handed out Friday. BGA will play CPA in a rematch of a game that we did on Main Street Preps Thursday night earlier this year. That comes your way at 11 a.m. And then the finale will be Baylor versus McCallie. Man, I don't get to cover Division II as much as I would perhaps like to, Blaine, but I did get to see BGA. I did get to see CPA. And I know from Mo how great Columbia Academy is, and I've seen Giles County scrimmage Nashville Christian. Only 2 teams I haven't seen is Baylor and McCallie, basically. I feel like all 6 of these are really good squads. The D2 bracket is loaded this year, it feels like.
I just think you got to give so much credit to what first-year Battleground Academy coach Bobby Bentley has been able to do. This is his first season, and he's in the state championship game. The guy's a proven winner from, I believe, South Carolina is where he came from, and he started to put up those big scores in the first couple of weeks. There were some talks about how good that offense could be. Then they hit a lull facing CPA and facing FRA, but they got revenge in the semifinals against Franklin Road Academy. I don't know if they get it done against CPA. CPA is a great, great team, incredibly well coached, but there's so much credit to what Bobby Bentley has done in his first year at BGA.
That's going to be fun. Again, the semifinals for Division I will be Friday night. and the championships for Division II and Division I will take place at UTC next week. So buckle up, folks. The end is in sight. Real quickly, before we get ready to close our show, I missed our spot earlier, so I want to remind you guys that we want to make you aware of the Zen Sports Big Game Sweepstakes, which is exclusive to Tennessee. One customer will win a grand prize of 2 VIP tickets, tailgates, parties, and hotel stay for Super Bowl in New Orleans this year, close to $22,000, $21,998 value, in fact, or $10,000 in cash. And what's more, Zen Sports will also award 50 additional prizes, which will include tickets to any Tennessee sporting event or $100 cash. Customers can earn 1 entry for every bet made in the month of November. A couple more days left there to get those in. 1 entry for every dollar bet in November, and 2 times the entries for every parlay made. The drawing will take place Tuesday, December 3rd. Again, that's the Zen Sports Big Game Sweepstakes. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Blaine, we did tease earlier in the show as part of our top story. Didn't really creep across my timeline as much as I might have anticipated. But South Carolina went down in women's college basketball this weekend. First regular season loss for South Carolina since they lost to Missouri several years ago, and their first loss in general since they suffered that loss in the Final Four 2 seasons ago.
UCLA number 5 in the country, but never winning against an AP number 1 team. They were 0-20 in their previous matchups against the top team in the land. I think, had I just read the headline, South Carolina loses 43-game win streak, I don't think UCLA would have been on the top of my radar as to who would have done that.
And so that begs the question, or that's what I'm wondering sitting here today, is does one loss in November, does that officially mean that it's game on and anybody can win this thing in your mind? Or is it still too early to tell?
I feel like in women's college basketball, the unfortunate truth is that it's making headway. It's not as kind of wide open as what the men's game might be. So I think that even though there's a loss in November, again, it's a loss to the number 5 team. It's a respectable loss on a resume. This is probably going to fuel South Carolina and help it to. I'm not as concerned about this as I think I could be if this were a different team that lost a long losing streak.
I'm with you. If nothing else, this seems like a classic. Dawn Staley is about to bottle this and milk it for all it's worth. SEC foes, which is a tough league, obviously, but SEC foes might need to be on high alert. Once again, that was a revisit of our top story brought to you by our fine folks at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill in Columbia. We wanted to make sure we revisited that. Speaking of college basketball, Blaine, there have been a handful of games, and Tennessee had a couple of nice wins. The Vols, we mentioned it in the rundown, take care of Baylor. The Rick Barnes-led UT Vols are kind of, I'm not going to say punching above their weight, but they're playing some great basketball early in the season right now.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive for them. They did suffer a big blow just a little bit the week before. JP Estrella announced today that he will not play this season due to a foot injury. So that's a blow for them. But I really like Chaz Lanier for Tennessee. This is a guy who played at North Florida last year. From Ensworth originally. This guy's a high-volume scorer. He can really get it done. If they really found a way to reload their roster, I feel like, and this is the next kind of high-volume scorer that the Vols are going to have is Chaz Lanier in my mind.
Absolutely. Beat Virginia to open things up Thursday, and then followed up with a 77-62 win versus Baylor to close this out. Blaine, that takes us to the top of the hour. Thank you very much for filling in. Mo will return tomorrow, but we always appreciate your efforts here on Main Street Land.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Always glad to yap for 2 hours with the great Mo and Wade. Always glad to help out and get a little bit more broadcasting chops from some of the best in the game.
Okay, your check's in the mail, partner. Just to cool your jets a little bit there. All right, thank you. Thank you, Blaine. We'll see you next time. Once again, that was Blaine Keller for joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Wayne Ely saying so long. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back in studio tomorrow in Columbia. Mo Patton will return, and we hope that you guys will come back with us. Same time, same place. See you at 2 on Tuesday.